Okay, so this whole thing kicks off with sirens screaming through Tehran, but trust me, it doesn't end there. This story just explodes into a global flashpoint, and it all revolves around one person, a man with incredible, almost hidden power. We're going to break down exactly how one crisis in one city can put the entire world on edge. So why is the world watching Tehran? I mean, you've got intelligence agencies, financial markets, everybody's eyes are suddenly glued to this one spot. The answer? Well, it's complicated, but it's a question we absolutely need to get our heads around because the stakes here are just incredibly high.
If you boil it all down, this whole story really comes down to three things. First, you've got a mysterious attack. Second, a super powerful figure who, loves operating from the shadows. And third, the very real potential for a global crisis that could affect every single one of us. So, let's unpack this.
All right, let's start where it all began, in Tehran, a city that's already frankly on edge. And this one event just sent these massive shockwaves way, way beyond its borders.
This wasn't one of those things that starts with a press conference or some official declaration. No, this started with sirens in the middle of the night. The first signs were just confusion. This feeling in the air that something really bad had just gone down, and you could almost feel an entire city just holding its breath.
Now, to really get why this is such a big deal, we have to look past the attack itself and zoom in on the person right at the center of the storm. And here's the thing. He's a man who has spent his entire life trying to stay out of the spotlight.
And that brings us right to the main question, doesn't it? So who is Mojtaba Khamenei? He's not a president, he's not an elected official, yet somehow his fate is now completely tangled up with global stability. How does that happen?
Okay, let's break down where his power actually comes from. First off, the obvious one. He's the son of the supreme leader, Iran's ultimate authority. But his influence goes so much deeper than just family ties. He studied in Qom, which is the heart of Shia religious scholarship, giving him serious clerical street cred. He's got these deep, long-standing connections to the security state, built over years of working behind the scenes. And he's part of that Iran-Iraq war generation, which is a huge deal. It connects him to the very foundation of the modern state. The bottom line? He has all the right credentials. But here's the kicker. None of it was earned in the public eye.
And look, you just can't talk about power in Iran without talking about the IRGC. Seriously, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, it's not just an army. Think of it more like a state within a state. It's a massive force that's ideological, military, and economic. They run businesses, they control huge parts of the economy, and their loyalty is to the Supreme Leader's office, period. This is the real foundation of power. And Mojtaba's close relationship with its top brass, that's probably his single most important asset. So here's the really crucial thing to get. His power wasn't won in an election. It wasn't built on public support. It was forged in those quiet, guarded corridors of the state, through backroom deals and networks of loyalty that are almost completely invisible to the outside world.
Okay, so how does an internal power play suddenly become a threat to the whole world? Well, it's what happened after the attack that turns this from being just Iran's problem into everybody's problem. Right after the attack, there was nothing. Just this deafening silence. Mojtaba Khamenei was nowhere to be seen. No public appearance. Instead, state TV started showing this image of an empty chair. And let me tell you, that is a powerful and honestly a really chilling symbol of a possible power vacuum right at the very top.
And then, finally, the silence breaks. But it's not him. It's a state news anchor reading from a script. And the message was crystal clear, and it was a direct challenge. Quote, "Any aggression will be met with a decisive response in the world's most critical energy artery." I mean, that's not a warning. That's a straight-up threat.
So what is that energy artery? They're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. And that number you see, 20%, that's how much of the entire planet's daily oil supply passes through that one tiny choke point. To put it bluntly, it's the jugular vein of the global economy. And this is what that kind of threat does to the global economy, like immediately. A threat to the Strait of Hormuz, it doesn't just make diplomats nervous. It sends the world's energy markets into a complete panic. Just the hint of a disruption can make oil prices shoot through the roof almost overnight.
And let's be clear, this isn't just some abstract number on a stock ticker. A huge spike in oil prices, that translates directly to what you pay at the pump. It means higher shipping costs for basically everything you buy,
And yeah, that means it hits the price of your groceries. A crisis in Tehran can literally start costing you money within days.
But, if we peel back the layers here, beyond the immediate threat, this attack has ripped the lid off a much deeper and much more sensitive issue. And that is the whole question of succession, and what power in Iran even means anymore.
And this really gets to the fundamental conflict at play here. Because on the one hand, Iran is set up like a republic, right? It has elections, public offices, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, you have this reality of inherited influence, where power is passed down through family and loyalty, all happening behind closed doors. This whole crisis just shoves those two completely opposite ideas right into the spotlight.
When you get right down to it, this one attack has accomplished something that years of intelligence reports and analysis never could. It has yanked this super-secretive figure right out of the shadows and onto the world stage. And by doing that, it's kicked off this massive, urgent debate about who will lead Iran next, and what that means for the stability of the entire region.
So now, suddenly, everyone from world leaders to intelligence analysts is scrambling to answer some pretty urgent questions. I mean, if he does end up taking power, how is he going to pull it off? What's the reaction from regional rivals going to be? And the biggest question of all, can things even stay stable through a transition this explosive?
And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about. This crisis, it's not really just about one guy or one attack. It forces us to ask something much bigger about power itself. When a system that was built on revolution starts to act more like a dynasty, what happens next?